This is what Middleton has done in the playoffs against the Celtics. Over 20 points per game, shooting over 51% from the floor, more than 54% from three-point land. He is a Celtics killer. So let's deep dive this series, which I think is going to be excellent. I am joined by the stadium's Jeff Goodman and our very own Chris Forsberg, who I'm already giving. I would love to give both of you all of the recommendations in Milwaukee, but I will say this now, and I will not say it again. I am rooting for the Celtics. I was never a huge Bucks fan growing up. I was a Brewers and a Packers gal. I am a green teamer, this green, Celtics green, so stop sending me angry emails and tweets. Okay, now that we're done with that.
You just run that on a loop?
Yes. What is the impact? Like, where is it a huge advantage, Chris, for the Bucks to lose Khris Middleton, or is it less so now than maybe it would have been a year or two ago?
So as you said, he is a Celtic killer, which does mean something. Like every time he seems to go out there, he would just rain down a million threes. You said 56% from three. I was like, wow, that sounds like 20% too low. So it does matter because, especially when you're putting all that attention on Giannis, his ability to kick it out and have other guys knock it down. I'll much rather take my chances on the Wes Matthews and Pat Connaughtons and Grayson Allens of the world than I do with Khris Middleton. All that being said, I don't think it gets decidedly easier just because Middleton isn't out there. They still have very good shooters. They still have that big back line. And I think this is going to be a little bit more of a grind than Celtics fans seem to like. Not that they're getting like all full of themselves after that Nets series, but I just think it's going to be a grind for no other reason than Giannis is out there, and that still makes it tough.
Goodman, where will the Bucks miss Khris Middleton the most?
Everywhere. I mean, that's the beauty of Khris Middleton, right? He's not kind of a one-trick pony. He does everything well, and he's so understated in how he does it. And he's always been that way. Back to college, doesn't wow you with any one part of his game. Just a professional player, defends at a high level, can score from all three levels, and does it quietly. Doesn't demand the ball, doesn't talk a lot. None of that, just kind of does whatever you need him to do. And he's kind of the perfect Robin to Giannis being Batman. And you lose him, and Jrue Holiday's got to step up. But the biggest thing is Bobby Portis has stepped up and has to continue to step up for the Bucks.
Jeff doesn't know my stance on the Robin.
Yeah. I was like, oh man, Chris is going to lose. I said the other day, I said Jaylen Brown was a Robin to Jayson Tatum's Batman, and I got a lecture.
Yeah, it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to players like Jaylen Brown. These players are all-stars.
What did I say?
No one's making movies about Robins, but that's another pod.
Giannis is the best player in the game.
I'm aware. And Jayson Tatum is getting near that level, but you still don't call Jaylen Brown Robin.
Can the Bucks, Goodman?
Yes, you do. Yes.
Can the Bucks? I think to Chris's point, people here see that Khris Middleton is out, and they're like, cakewalk to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Bucks can still win without Khris Middleton.
Yes. Their culture is so strong. We talk about the Celtics culture. It's been great for 2.5 months. The Bucks culture has been great for a couple of years now, and it starts with Giannis. And when they added Jrue Holiday, that was the missing piece, right? When they got rid of Eric Bledsoe and brought in Jrue Holiday, everything changed. So Jrue Holiday is capable of doing more. Grayson Allen has been terrific over the last few games, shooting the ball from three. Portis, again, like I mentioned. Connaughton's capable. They've got a lot of guys that are capable, but none of them can replace what Khris Middleton did for the Bucks.
Does it make them weaker defensively?
I mean, not so much so that I think like the Celtics will feast. Their defense hasn't been great, but now they have Brook Lopez back again. So much of what they do is the back line, and they're going to challenge you to step up and shoot. And if the Grant Williams and Peyton Pritchards of the world come off the bench and knock down shots, and Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown make all the right reads, it'll look good. And we'll say, oh, the Celtics are capable of gouging this defense. If you can't get points at the bucket and you're not knocking down shots, then you're not going to miss Middleton as much as maybe on the surface.
All right, guys.
I disagree. I disagree because Middleton's got size. And whoever you're going to put in there other than Portis is not going to have the size to match up against Tatum or even Jaylen Brown to some extent. But some of those guys, that's where I think they're going to miss Middleton is he was that big forward. And other than Bobby Portis, they don't have a lot of that.
All right, well, maybe that's a mismatch the Celtics can take advantage of. Well, despite the loss of Khris Middleton, the Celtics are not about to take the defending champions lightly in this playoff matchup. Here are Marcus Smart and Jayson Tatum on what they're up against when they face the Bucks.
and we know, and everybody in this league knows that, you know, they've been to the championship, they won it, they're hungry, they know what it takes, they know what it feels like, and we just got to be ready for it.
Really good team, defending champs. You know, they've been there before, they've got the job done, so obviously it's going to be a great challenge. You know, I'm just looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
All right, Tommy Giles joining the conversation now. Guys, I think a lot of people, and listen, expectations change when the Celtics play as well as they did, especially in that first round against the Nets. But I think a lot of people, Giles, are looking at this and saying, well, man, if they don't get past, you know, the Milwaukee Bucks, like, what has this season been? I look at it, I guess, I mean, saying it, I look at it a little more nuanced, sounds kind of snooty, but I feel like if they lose in 4 or 5 games to the Bucks, I'm going to be looking at the Celtics saying, what happened? Like, maybe we misread this team. But if this series goes to 7 games and they lose in a heartbreaker against a really good team with the best player in the NBA, to me, that's still progress. Are my glasses too green?
No, but I still think that would be a disappointment. Now, let me define disappointment, though, because it wouldn't be that we're saying the Celtics would be chokers or losers or how could that happen? But you can still be disappointed because this team is playing as well as it is. So that's why I do expect them to get past the Bucks, and I do see a way in which Milwaukee can win this series, but you can still feel some disappointment because there is so much promise with this team.
Yeah, and so you think about it, right? Like, they're coming off a confidence-building win over the Nets. The Bucks not having Middleton. And then the home court advantage, which hovers over all of this, right? Because the Bucks decided they didn't want to push for that 2 seed. They were okay with being the 3. You know, Celtics players have said that they're not using it as motivation, but I can't help but think it's in the back of your mind where they're like, they thought they could beat us without home court, that it was better for them to avoid the Nets than to get that home court advantage. With those 3 things working in Boston's favor, I think the Celtics should win this series, and it would be a little bit of a disappointment if they didn't, based on what we've seen. But I leave open, like, if Giannis goes supernova, sometimes you just got to shrug, and there's still been a lot of progress. And I said after all this, what they've done since January is so stupid, crazy, amazing that we can't be selfish. And this ride has to end somewhere. And if it's not with a championship, as long as there's been progress made and the future still looks bright, it's okay to embrace that.
Where do you stand, Goodman?
Yeah, I'm with both of them. I mean, honestly, I think they both made the exact points that you need to. You'd be disappointed if they don't win, only because you've raised the expectations so high. But you've got to look at the future and how bright it is now and the optimism that you have. But again, without Middleton, yeah, I would be, if I'm a Celtics fan, I would be absolutely disappointed if you don't win this series.
Goodman, who has more pressure on them to win this series with the way things have gone? Is it the defending champions, or has it switched to the Celtics?
No, they already won one. They won one, and they don't have Khris Middleton. So honestly, they're not even supposed to win this series right now. Everybody's got the Celtics winning this for the most part because of the injury. So I think the Celtics, I don't think either team has a ton of pressure because, again, if the Celtics lose, it's still a hell of a season from where they came from. For the Bucks, every team right now has injuries except the Celtics. Like, the Celtics are finally the healthiest team in the league. It took a couple of years, but they're there.
He just jinxed it, I bet. Now someone's going to, like...
No, I'm knocking on wood. I'm knocking on wood, Forsberg. Jesus, Goodman, you had one job on the show. I get his point, right? Like, the Bucks don't have that pressure. But I will say this. Like, once you've been there, you're just sort of expected to be there. And you're supposed to not... Like, no one's satisfied by winning one. My biggest thing is, like, how did the Celtics play from being the team that's in the power position? Because they've always sort of been that spunky underdog, even as they've sort of accelerated this season. I'm eager to see if Ime can get them into the mindset of being the dog and not the dog being chased or whatever.
I'll just add this. I think they already had more pressure on them against Brooklyn. I think the Celtics had more pressure in that series, and we saw the way they responded. So I'm not worried about them having more pressure going into this series against the Bucks.
And I think Ime is going to use they wanted to play us. They didn't even care about getting home court, so show them that they were wrong. Well, regardless if Khris Middleton will not be able to play, the Celtics still have to go up against Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's going to be a tough task trying to slow down the reigning Finals MVP, who is 7-5 in the postseason against Boston and averaging almost 27 points and over 10 rebounds.
Bigs, smalls, mediums, everybody in between. It's a team defensive thing against him. And, like last series, we feel we have a lot of versatility and size as well, so you can throw different looks at him.
Good. Goodman, how in the world do you slow down Giannis? Can you only hope to contain him?
I mean, you somehow have to get him where he's settling for jump shots. And that's easier said than done, but sometimes he does get a little happy with the perimeter shot. And if you can get him that way and build that wall, and just, again, you're switching everything. Now, he's so much more powerful than Kevin Durant. That's the difference, is he's not going to settle for the most part. But you can throw in a ton of different bodies at him. That's what they'll do. And you know what? If he goes for 30, he goes for 30. You got to make sure those guys like Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, Bobby Portis, they don't get too hot.
Trenni, I got a secret weapon for you.
Might his initials be RW?
Here we go.
May he be sometimes referred to as the Time Lord?
You guessed it, Trenni. So here's the thing.
Should have known.
Robert Williams got 2 games to shake rust against Brooklyn. Now he gets a full week to ramp up. He was not himself in that series, and certainly not enough that I feel comfortable that he's just going to go back out there and be Rob. But if he gets closer to what we know, his ability in that sort of roamer role is what unlocks this Celtics defense. They go from sort of stingy and being very good to sublime. And so I need the Celtics to get him healthy, get him rolling around, and then you have a chance to stop Giannis, because he can come over with that help. He can be the second body. He can help build you the wall that Goodman's talking about. He can make sure he doesn't get to the rim. But if he doesn't, then the Celtics are in trouble. Because as much as Al Horford has been phenomenal, asking him to go one-on-one with Giannis throughout this series is just asking for trouble, especially when, I mean, poor guy's 35, and I mean, the Celtics have always had.
It's not that old Forsberg. Come on, 35's young these days.
I'd give anything to turn back the clock.
But I'm saying he's been playing like he's 28, so but he's got to keep that hot tub time machine going backwards.
I do wonder, guys, can the Celtics, when I say they, can the Celtics play as physical defensively as they did against Kevin Durant and the Nets? Because one thing that Giannis is really great at is drawing legitimate fouls, right, and getting to the line. But we saw that, especially in that game 4, and even I think it was game 1 or 2, like, you see guys fouling out, and then suddenly your bench is short.
You said they because we is the Milwaukee Bucks to you. But I understand the point. Durant got to the line 20 times in one of those games against the Celtics early in that Brooklyn series, and the Celtics were able to survive that. But certainly it's a different beast when Giannis is just relentlessly attacking. We see, like, the refs aren't going to be afraid to call Jayson Tatum for fouls. You got to worry about your superstars not being out there. So, yeah, it's something you have to think about, and it just comes down to being disciplined and playing good defense. Celtics got to go up. As good as their defense was at the end of the regular season, that's what they got to get back to, because it wasn't on that same level against the Brooklyn Nets.
Goodman, we got Jan, and the first game is Sunday, so we have to get your prediction now. How do you see this series playing out?
I think the Celtics win this in 6.
Wow.
I really do. I mean, without Middleton, I think this team's in a little bit of trouble. And the other thing we haven't talked about is Jayson Tatum is such a different player, not only from a confidence, passing, all that, physically. Like, than the last time they saw the Bucks in the playoffs. And now you can put Jayson Tatum on Giannis, and he's not going to just overpower him completely. So I think Tatum, you can put him on him at this point. And he's so good defensively, he can match up on Giannis and give him some issues.
Us in 6. You like that? Us in 6.